Imagine standing in a circle of 300 men, the air thick with the smell of sweat, wood smoke, and something metallic, something primal. In front of you sits a simple wooden bowl, filled with a dark, purplish-black liquid. This is the Melas Zomos, the Black Broth. It is the only thing standing between you and another 20 hours of brutal physical exertion. According to legend, a traveler from a more refined city-state once tasted this soup and remarked that he finally understood why the Spartans were so brave in battle. They had nothing to live for if this was their dinner. We see the Spartans today through a cinematic lens of bronzed abs, flowing red capes, and hyper-masculine energy. Modern fitness influencers have capitalized on this image, selling Spartan workout programs, warrior supplements, and diets that focus on massive amounts of grass-fed beef and exotic superfoods. But if you actually looked at what fueled the greatest infantry force in human history, you'd find that everything the fitness industry tells you about the Spartan lifestyle is a lie. The real Spartan diet wasn't about optimization, aesthetics, or high-performance protein shakes. It was an exercise in systematic deprivation designed to turn humans into tools of the state. If you tried to live like a real Spartan today, you wouldn't get a six-pack. You'd probably end up in a hospital or a prison. By the end of this, you will understand the dark reality of the Black Broth and why the modern Spartan trend is a marketing scam that misses the most important lesson of the Agoge. Most of what you know about the Spartan physique comes from Hollywood. We imagine them as bodybuilders in leather trunks. The reality was much leaner, much grittier, and significantly more malnourished. The Spartan state, or the Lacedaemonians, viewed food not as a source of pleasure, but as a necessary evil. To understand why, we have to look at the Syssitia. This was the mandatory common mess hall where every adult male Spartan was required to eat. You couldn't just go home and have a private dinner with your wife. If you were a citizen, you ate with your unit. If you couldn't provide your monthly quota of food to this mess hall, you lost your citizenship. You were demoted. The stakes for food were literally life and death, but not in the way you think. The center of this communal meal was the black broth. The recipe was terrifyingly simple: boiled pig's legs, salt, vinegar, and a massive amount of pig's blood. The vinegar was the key. It acted as an emulsifier to keep the blood from clotting into a solid mass while it boiled, resulting in a thick, dark, iron-rich soup. There were no spices, no herbs, no garlic or onions, just the metallic tang of blood and the sharp bite of vinegar. Modern influencers talk about ancestral eating and nose-to-tail carnivore diets, claiming that eating organs and blood is the secret to high testosterone and elite performance. But the Spartans didn't eat blood because they read a study on bioavailability. They ate it because it was cheap, it was dense in iron, and it was miserable. In Sparta, if you enjoyed your food, you were viewed with suspicion. Pleasure was a weakness. Luxury was a contagion. The goal of the black broth was to provide just enough calories to keep a man standing, while ensuring he never looked forward to a meal. This brings us to the first big lie of the modern fitness industry: the idea that Spartans were huge. In reality, the Spartan system, the Agoge, was designed to keep boys and men perpetually hungry. From the age of 7, boys were taken from their homes and thrust into a world of state-sponsored survival. They were intentionally underfed. The ancient historian Plutarch notes that this was done for 2 reasons. First, They believed that a lean body grew taller than a well-fed, stout one. They thought a lack of body fat allowed the frame to stretch. While we know now that malnutrition actually stunts growth, the psychological intent is what matters. The second reason was more tactical. By keeping the boys hungry, the state forced them to learn how to steal. If you were hungry, you had to scout the farms of the helots, the enslaved class, and take what you needed. If you were caught, you weren't punished for stealing. You were punished for being clumsy enough to get caught. This created a soldier who was comfortable with a gnawing pit in his stomach. A soldier who could march for days without a supply line because his body was already adapted to a caloric deficit. Compare that to the modern warrior diet, which encourages 5 meals a day and a protein shake after every session. A real Spartan would look at a modern fitness influencer and see someone who is a slave to their own appetite. But let's talk about the biology of the black broth for a moment, because there is a weird nutritional logic to it. While it sounds disgusting, pig's blood is incredibly nutrient-dense. It's packed with heme iron, which is the most absorbable form of iron for the human body. It's full of vitamin B12 and minerals. In an era where most of the population struggled with anemia, the Spartans were essentially blood doping through their diet. This gave them incredible cardiovascular endurance. The vinegar used to keep the soup liquid also had a hidden benefit. It helped manage blood sugar spikes and aided in the digestion of the tough, low-quality meat they were given. So, while they weren't eating clean by modern standards, they were eating a highly functional, mineral-heavy sludge. However, the influencers who tell you to eat like a Spartan conveniently ignore the other side of the menu. When the Spartans weren't eating blood soup, they were eating coarse barley bread, some goat cheese, and occasionally a bit of fruit or wine diluted heavily with water. There was no variety. There was no cheat day. The consistency of this misery was the point. The fitness industry loves the idea of Spartan discipline when it comes to hitting a personal best in the gym, but they rarely talk about the discipline of boredom. The Spartans used food to crush the individual ego. In the Syssitia, everyone ate the same thing. No one was special. No one had a custom meal plan. You ate the broth or you didn't eat. This leads us to the most uncomfortable truth about the Spartan diet. It wasn't about health. It was about social control. The helots, the people the Spartans had enslaved, were the ones growing the grain, raising the pigs, and making the broth. The Spartans themselves were forbidden from any form of productive labor. They were a pure warrior caste, supported by a massive oppressed underclass. The Spartan diet was only possible because they had a permanent slave population to do the cooking and farming. When a modern influencer tells you to live the Spartan lifestyle, they are selling you the aesthetic of the master, without mentioning the infrastructure required to sustain it. But here is where the story takes a turn. If the black broth was so effective at creating hard men, why did Sparta eventually fall? This is the lesson the fitness world misses. As Sparta became more successful and started winning wars, wealth began to flow into the city. Gold and silver, which were once banned, started appearing. The strict adherence to the communal mess halls began to slip. The elites started finding ways to eat better food in private. They began to prioritize their own comfort over the collective austerity of the state. The moment the Spartans stopped eating the black broth, the moment they traded their blood soup for Persian delicacies and fine wines, their military dominance began to crumble. They became soft by their own standards. But it wasn't just the food. It was the loss of the shared struggle. The black broth wasn't a superfood. It was a social glue. It was the physical manifestation of the idea that no one is above the group. When you see someone on social media today promoting a Spartan lifestyle while showing off a luxury kitchen and $1,000 worth of supplements, they are the very thing the ancient Spartans hated. They are the Persian luxury wrapped in a Spartan skin. The real Spartan secret isn't a specific macronutrient ratio or a special type of exercise. It is the ability to endure. It is the willingness to be uncomfortable for a goal that is larger than your own reflection in the mirror. The Spartans didn't have six-packs because they did Spartan crunches. They had them because they were perpetually 300 calories short of a full meal and spent 10 hours a day carrying a heavy bronze shield. If you want the Spartan results, you have to accept the Spartan reality, a life of cold, hunger, and absolute conformity. Most of us don't actually want that. We want the glory without the vinegar. We want the muscles without the metallic taste of pig's blood in our throats. The modern fitness industry is a machine designed to make you feel like you're a warrior by selling you things that make your life easier. But the Agoge was designed to make life harder. So, the next time you see a Spartan protein powder or a warrior meal prep service, ask yourself, would a Spartan recognize this? The answer is no. A Spartan would look at our world of abundance, our climate-controlled gyms and our flavored electrolytes, and they would see a culture of great kings, soft, pampered, and easily broken. The black broth wasn't a diet plan. It was a weapon of psychological warfare that the Spartans turned on themselves to ensure they could never be conquered by their own desires. We don't need to eat boiled blood to be fit, and we certainly shouldn't look to a slave-based military state for ethical guidance. But we can learn one thing from the Melas Zomos. True strength isn't found in what you consume. It's found in what you can do without. It's found in the discipline to choose the har